And welcome, everyone. We are on our very long journey through the book of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes. Let's see. I'll get it on my screen. Here it is. Okay. Um, any comments, questions before we dive back into the text? Okay, so let's just do it. See how far we can get. Okay, and I presume I always ask, and it hasn't been an issue for quite a long time, but I assume you can see chapter 5.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so again, Kohelet is just continuing to give us advice, and it's just a very interesting book. It's a little long compared to the things we usually study, but I'm having an interesting time going through it carefully. So would someone like to read?
I'll read this time.
Okay.
Keep your mouth from being rash, and let not your throat be quick to bring forth speech before God. For God is in heaven, and you are on earth. That is why your words should be few. Just as dreams come with much brooding, so does foolish utterance come with much speech.
And of course, a lot of my comments have to do with Hebrew and Hebrew idioms. And Paul, it's too much just to say that the heart was the organ of thinking, but apparently in Kohelet and other places, the heart was also thought to be the organ of speech and
Hmm.
located in the throat. So the word here is libcha, your lev, your heart. So here it's the organ of speech. Um, and here it's, be quick don't be quick to bring forth speech before God. Pretty simple translation, lifnei Elohim. And here, before God in this context usually means in the temple. So apparently the commentaries I read were focusing on not taking oaths in the temple, more formal oaths before God.
Well, talking about the throat, uh, the vocal cords make a lot of sounds and noises and are 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 controlled by the brain,
Hmm.
and the vocal cords in the throat are very important because the brain will say something and you could say, "Oh, I better not," and then you could say, "Well, I better say something," and you
So
have
they so
control
th
over that.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is that in biblical Hebrew, lev can mean heart. It can mean the seat of thought. It can also mean the seat of speech.
Right.
Uh, um, and again, just the commentaries was rather than so does foolish utterance come with much speech. It's literally the voice of the fool. It's not he fool. The voice of the fool comes with many words. Kol kisil berav davarim. Okay, let's continue.
When you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it, for God has no pleasure in fools. What you vow, fulfill. It is better not to vow at all than to vow and not fulfill.
Yeah, and this is also mentioned in the Torah in Deuteronomy, almost the exact same words. And we've discussed this that Judaism takes vows very, very seriously. So, we have this chant. I was going to say prayer. It's technically not a prayer. Technically, it's a legal proceeding at the beginning of Yom Kippur called Kol Nidre, which means all vows, and it's a matter of renouncing vows. Um, and then traditionally Jews will say, like, I'll see you next Monday, bli neder. I'll see you next Monday without taking a vow. So it's important to treat vows soberly and carefully. And he's going to continue in the same vein.
Okay, don't let your mouth bring you into disfavor, and don't plead before the messenger that it was an error, but fear God, else God may be angered by your talk and destroy your possessions. For much dreaming leads to futility and to super, super
Superfluous.
superfluous talk.
Okay. Literally, don't make your mouth. Don't let your mouth make your flesh sin.
Wow, that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and
That's
I
a
would
good
say
one. I
again,
like that. I like that one.
I would say, lying and taking a false oath is a sin.
Yes.
I can't remember if I have other things. Oh, another one of my favorite themes is the word for messenger is malach, which is also the word for angel. And so, again, you don't plead before an angel or before God. The messenger is a messenger from God. That it was an error. I didn't mean to say that. I wasn't being sincere when I said that. Um, and in fact, some of the commentaries said that this angel is the angel of death. And the angel of
Wow.
death is coming for you, and don't try and get out of it saying all that rotten stuff I did was just a mistake.
If I could just make one more comment now that I'm reading this. Um, don't let your mouth bring you into disfavor. Now, if you happen to say something that is not correct, or you're angry or you're irritated with somebody and you say something that puts you into disfavor, what happens to the one who listens? What happens to the person who listens to that kind of disfavor?
So, on the surface, the person who listens is not an active participant. Now, there's a
No.
lot of discussion on the subject of gossip that
Yes,
if you're gossiping with someone, what the person should be doing, the listener, is to say, let's not talk about that.
right.
Um,
That's good. I like that.
and so I would say, there's a tradition that gossip hurts three people: the speaker, the listener, and the one about whom is gossiped. So the listener, if they are participating by listening and not admonishing the speaker, they bear some of the guilt as well.
They do. And you know something funny? I don't know how long a person that's a listener would carry the idea forward by listening to somebody who made a statement and didn't really mean it to be gone more than just that other person, but it goes and it travels, travels, travels. It may go to somebody you don't even know.
Yeah, well, that's the old story. Many of you have heard about, someone gossips about a rabbi and he goes to apologize. I'm going to silence you, Sandra. He goes to the rabbi and say, Rabbi, I gossiped about you. I'm really sorry.
Yes,
And, I'd like to ask your forgiveness.
yes.
And the rabbi says, okay, but I want you to do something. Do you have a feather pillow at home? And he says, yes. He says, okay, bring the feather pillow. And he said, okay, comes back. And he says, okay, I've got the feather pillow. He says, go outside. It's windy today. I want you to cut open the feather pillow and scatter all the feathers. Okay, he does that, goes back to the rabbi and says, okay, I've done it. He says, and now the rabbi says, okay, now I want you to go and gather all the feathers
Ay, ay, ay,
back
that's
into
hard.
the feather pillow.
Yeah,
And of course, the guy says, I can't possibly do that. And so, as the rabbi points out, that's one of the reasons why gossip is so serious and so
yes.
hard to undo, because it's all the other people that have heard this and are now spreading it
It's so,
around.
oh my God.
It's the
It's so hard to undo. It is almost
it's the
impossible.
what's the old line? Two people can keep a secret if one of them is dead. Um,
But it's almost
okay,
impossible to pick up all the feathers and put them back in the
right.
in the
And
pillow because one little one can get away, and that little one could cause other people to say, "Oh, I know what he did. I know
yep,
what she
yep.
did."
So gossip is actually quite serious form of it's called lashon hara, which literally means the evil tongue.
Yes, exactly.
Oops. Oh, there's what I have. Oh, I got the messenger. Okay. Okay, let's continue.
If am I at the right sentence?
Yep.
If you see
Mhm.
in
Yes.
providence oppression of the poor and suppression
Suppression.
of right and justice, don't wonder at the fact, for one high officially is protected by a higher one, and both of them are still higher ones. Thus, the greatest advantage in all the land is his. He controls a field that is cultivated.
Okay, such as the high official profits from the labor of others, but the exact meaning of the verse is uncertain. But it is interesting. The next bunch of verses from 7 to 11 are Kohelet's observations on the theme of greed. And the interesting thing, yeah, I have a comment here. he's diagnosing the illness, but not suggesting a remedy. Quite often in Torah text, it will say, if you do this, then that will happen to you, and so on. Kohelet is just making observations. He basically says if you see oppression of 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 the poor and suppression of right and justice, don't be surprised. So again, this is really Kohelet's wisdom and advice on what's going on in the world. Ultimately, his journey is one about how can I achieve happiness living in this world. But he's not saying take action, take up arms, report him to a court, do something to interfere with the oppression. He's just, as I say, he's diagnosing the illness, but not suggesting a remedy.
Yeah. So let's say I just want to just pass this on to somebody. Let's say you're talking with a lot of your friends, and a lot of your friends say, "I won't say a thing, and it's not going to be a deal. Don't worry about it." And I didn't mean to say it anyway, and you take it at face value. Okay, well, they don't mean it, and all of a sudden, one of them breaks free and goes out and says what he wants to
Yeah, I
say.
mean, I don't want to get into an extended discussion about gossip.
Yeah, okay, okay,
Gossip is very hurtful in
it is
lots and lots of ways.
absolutely okay.
Okay.
A lover of money is never satisfied with money, nor a lover of wealth with income. This too is futile. As one's substance increases, so do those who consume it. What then does the success of its owner amount to but feasting the eyes?
See if I don't have any comments there. So, yeah, basically, if you measure your happiness by money,
That's
then by definition, you can always have your eye on twice the amount of money.
right.
Um, I remember once reading a survey where they asked people, who are making a certain level of income, how much income would they need to really feel okay and to be satisfied?
Right.
And the answer was fairly uniform. It was 25% more than they were making at the moment. So it didn't matter whether they were making a lot of money or not a lot of money. Everybody agreed they really needed more. And of
Oh,
course, I think as we all know, the more you earn, the more obligations you get into, and most people are chasing after money. And there's lots of stories, and we've talked about it before in this book about people literally making millions of dollars a day and still pushing the envelope of what is
more.
legal and winding up in jail because they wanted even more.
All right.
And he says, this too is futile. Again, we see this word hevel showing up.
Workers sleep in sweet, whether they have much or little to eat, but the abundance of the rich doesn't let them sleep.
Let's just stop for a second. The word for workers here is interesting. It's oved, um, but it's ha'oved, the worker. Of course, in the original Bible, there's no vocalization. If we would have read it ha'eved, that would be the slave or the servant. So it could mean either here. And of course, the point is, um, Kohelet's point is when you're rich, you're worrying about all kinds of things that a poor person doesn't worry about.
Right. That's right.
Let's continue with verse 12.
Here is a grave evil I have observed under the sun. Riches hoarded to the detriment of its owners.
So in this and the next few chapters, um, from 5:12 quite a ways to 6:6, Kohelet is going to talk about three evils. A man earns wealth, or a person earns wealth but loses it. Number two, he leaves the world with nothing despite his toil. And number three, he received wealth from God but does not enjoy it. This is killing me. But a stranger will.
A stranger will.
Yeah. Let's see from the current slide. Oh, it's okay. Um, okay, yeah, here we go. So in the next verses, that's what we're going to see, these evils as described by Kohelet.
See, is that the word? Is that the page I should read now? Chapter 5?
I don't know if you read. Yeah, you read this, yes. So we're
Okay.
here in that those riches are lost.
Okay. In that those riches are lost in some unlucky venture, and if they produce children, they have nothing in hand.
So an evil is you lose money in some kind of investment or gambling or whatever, or even a robbery. And now you're suffering the loss of that, and your children get nothing. And here's another grave evil.
Another great evil is this: the rich must depart just as they came. As they come out of the mother's womb, so must they depart at last. Naked as they came, they can make nothing of their wealth to carry with them.
They can take nothing of their wealth to
Or they
carry
can
with them.
take nothing of their wealth to carry with them.
So I know some of you have heard me tell this story before, but this is a true story about a very wealthy Canadian businessman. I think he was in the liquor business, uh, Edward Reichman, and he was a billionaire. And Orthodox Jew, and when he died, he left two notes for his son, one to be open on immediately upon his death, and the second one to be open at the end of Shloshim, at the end of 30 days after his death.
Mm.
And when he died, his sons opened up the first letter, and in that letter, he requested to be buried with a certain pair of socks. He described them by her left-hand drawer or whatever. And so they took the socks and they went to the Chevra Kadisha, the organization designed to prepare his tasked with preparing his body for burial. And of course, they explained that under Jewish law, that you're only buried in your shroud, and a
Yeah.
man is also buried wearing his talit with one of the fringes cut off, which is another little interesting oddity. We can talk about it. And of course, the sons argued and argued, and they went to a Beit Din, a Jewish court, to press their case. And of course, the response was, "We don't know what your father was thinking, but now he's in a place of universal knowledge, and he understands that you can't be buried in a pair of socks." So comes 30 days after his death, and they open the second letter, and it's again, of course, from him to his sons, saying, "By now you have learned that although you can be a billionaire, you can't take with you as much as one pair of socks."
Right.
And it is a great story, and I've told it a million times, and I double checked it, and it is a true story. So this
It's
upsets Kohelet. Yeah, Alan, go ahead.
the true story, but you actually don't know if it's not possible.
I actually know what you are.
Nobody knows what you can take with you. We just believe that you can't take anything with you.
Well, under Orthodox law, you can't take anything
That's
with you.
Orthodox law,
Yes,
but
yes.
that isn't necessarily what really can happen in my
Okay, well,
that was my point. Not that
yeah.
it makes any sense. All right.
And and the sorry,
And
someone was saying something. Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead, Farah.
I want to say why they never said that how much they enjoyed from their money in this world. That is enough. But when you go someplace, you don't know where they are going. But when you have money in this world, you enjoy a lot.
So do you think, generally speaking, rich people are happier than, let's say, middle income? I think poverty is clearly to me an unhappy state of affairs. So the question is, do you think rich people are significantly happier than people, let's say, middle income people?
No, I don't think so. But I think when you have more money, I see the people around me. They go to trips, they go to here, there, and enjoy.
They
But
do stuff. Okay, and they might even enjoy what they do. The question is whether they are happier.
I think they are happier. When they enjoy more, they are happier.
Okay, that contradicts the last statement you made that they're not happier. But go ahead. I'm going to let Cheryl weigh in from your professional viewpoint. But Ken, you wanted to say something? Or
Yeah, I think it's been there have been studies of people who win the lottery
Hmm.
and win millions of dollars in the lottery, and they find out that like 2 years later, they're actually not happy. They may even be not as happy as they were before they won the lottery. And it's relative. I think it's relative. So if you have lots of money, to you, lots of money is an ordinary condition. So you sort of get used to it, and it isn't anything that really necessarily brings you any more joy than. But someone who's poor, if they get some money right away, it raises their situation that they would probably be happier. But winning the lottery, unfortunately, a lot of people aren't equipped to handle that situation, and they end up blowing it all, and then they're really unhappy.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know, Cheryl, if you have any professional thoughts to add here, and then I'll call on Paul.
There's not much of a relationship between happiness and having more money. There are plenty of people who are very wealthy who are seriously depressed and miserable. And there are plenty of poor people who are seriously depressed and miserable. And the same goes. There are plenty of people who are poor but happy. Um,
The
so,
interesting point I
having
was,
money is no guarantee you're going to be not depressed or don't have bipolar disorder or a lot of these, biologically mediated affective disorders.
and of course, Kohelet's point, which is somewhat different, is that it's an evil that you can't take it with you. That you wind up naked, in the grave, as naked as when you came. Well, you have a nice little shroud. Paul and then Alan.
I was just going to counter your statement. I grew up in poverty in my family, and had a very happy family. We made do, and it was a wonderful childhood that I had.
Hmm. Hmm. Alan?
Rabbi, there is something in the Talmud that says that he who is rich is he who is satisfied with
Right.
their.
Yeah,
Does that?
I think it's Pirkei Avot. It's Mi Ashir, who is wealthy, who is rich, and the one who is satisfied with their lot,
Yeah.
with what they have.
I don't know
But
if it's related to this, but it occurred to me. Yeah.
but and of course, and I always think of, and Cheryl, again, this is your field, that people that get money, and I think about John Belushi and others who are just at the top of their fame and insanely talented and presumably wealthy. And I think, at the end of the day, they have this sort of feeling, well, if I'm so wealthy, why aren't I happier? Therefore, you know, one way to look at it is turn to drugs and alcohol and try and find happiness through self-medicating.
I mean, I see a biased sample at the hospital because by definition, once you get in to the
Hmm.
hospital and needing that level of care, you're already an extreme. So it is not this randomized sample, but a lot of the patients who come in, they get money from the government. Let's say $3,000 a month tax free. And some of this money that they often get by the time their case is determined is retroactive. And yet, within a couple of weeks, in general, they've snorted enough cocaine or heroin up their nose to get rid of $100,000. And it's a repeated story, constantly of what they've done.
Yep. Yep. And again, Kohelet's point is he finds it annoying. Again, his position is he's wealthy, he's a king, and presumably aging and facing death. And he is a grave evil. It's funny, I didn't actually look at the Hebrew till just now. Yatsa mi beten. It's like what comes out of my stomach. That's the evil. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is the one who comes out of his mother naked. Sorry, I'm misreading it. Okay, let's Alan, I presume your hand is up from the other.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, so what is the good of their toiling for the wind? Besides, all their days they eat in darkness. with much vexation and grief and anger.
So
What
again,
do
we
they
have
mean
this,
by
we
eat
have,
in darkness? What do they
yeah,
mean by
yeah.
in
So,
darkness?
so, so, uh, it's a good translation, B'choshech, Yochel. Um, and one of the commentaries is perhaps they skimp on oil for their lamps,
Hmm.
I can remember my father kept saying, what do you think? I work for the electric company? And for 5 years, I actually worked for the electric company, but I didn't run around turning on the lights because I had to pay my electric bill anyway. Or another comment on this verse is that it's, they are sort of living in darkness because they're so unhappy with the fact that they're toiling for the wind. Ya'amol l'ruach. They just keep striving and striving. And I'm sure I've mentioned this many times, but it struck me that the Trinity, pardon the expression, Jim, of happiness is time, resources, and health. And it strikes me very clearly, particularly as I reach this stage of my life, that if you have all three, it is a powerful blessing. But if you have wealth and health, but you spend 18 hours a day working and, and managing your investments and worrying about your investments and making yourself crazy, that's not very happy. But I
Right,
also realize, if you don't have health, it's hard to be very happy. And if you're in poverty, it's hard to be happy.
right. I'm sorry, what does vexation mean? I'm not sure what
Fixation means unhappiness.
unhappiness. Okay.
Yeah. Kois. Actually, kaas, if I remember correctly, literally means pain. It's
Pain.
great pain. With and
Hmm.
Okay.
Only this I have found is a real good to eat and drink and get pleasure with all the grains you make under the sun.
All the gains. I just want to make
I'm
sure we're
sorry,
not
all the
talking about
gains you make under
right.
the sun during the numbered days of life that God has given you, for that is your portion.
So this is we're gonna see this every now and again. Kohelet, in the midst of all of his vexation and aggravation and surus, every now and again he will say, "This is what I have found is good." In the Hebrew, pretty simple. Hine asher ra'iti, I've seen ani tov, that is good, and also beautiful. I get they translate it as real good. Asher yafa, and to eat and to drink and to see uh, uh, the gains you have made. So it's appreciating, and again, it also strikes me that the secret of happiness is gratitude. It's not so much what you have; it's are you grateful for having it. And I talk a lot about the Jewish blessing system, where we say blessings for beautiful sights and various foods and different occasions, including going to the bathroom. The question is, are you grateful? Do you have gratitude about the ordinary things of life? And I think that's certainly what strikes me as something worthy of gratitude. That just when a day goes okay, and you have things for which you can recite these blessings.
I grew up with a father who was angry at his brothers. His brothers were very, very wealthy. Most of them were very wealthy. And my dad was driving home with us in the car. When I say us, my brother, myself, and my mother. And he talked out loud and he said, "You know, Herman's stuff doesn't stink." And that, I never forgotten that. I mean, uh, why shouldn't, I mean, he was never happy about his brothers'
Right, right. So
money.
I would
Never,
say
never,
that.
never.
So again, I would say it's the same commentary. It's if you measure your happiness with wealth, then you're going to look at people who are more wealthy than you.
Yes,
And except for one person in the world, everyone is more wealthy than you.
yes.
There's somebody who's the richest person in the world. I don't know who it is today, but there's someone who is the richest person in the world. And everybody else envies that person if that's how you're measuring your happiness. If you go ahead, Farah.
I just want to say, every day when I'm watching, I have to watch 1 hour every day. I just watch and thank God that I am watching such a place nice and I'm healthy. By the way, I see the people that they don't have money, they are poor, they suffer a lot.
Oh boy,
They,
Yes.
if
Yep.
they are sick, they don't have money for medicine or something like that. But person that is rich at least has the good food, good doctor, good medication, everything.
Right. And the question is one's attitude, thank you, God, I have what I need. As Alan quoted the Talmud, the happy person is one who's satisfied with what he has. Or, it sounds like many people and Paul, maybe your father, was really looking at what other people had and why is it that they have more than I do.
And I
Maybe you
wonder,
don't believe me, but my husband was always said, God gave me more than that I desire.
Yep.
And more than that I want. God gave me more than that.
my question is, what would happen if my father was as rich as his brother?
He would be looking at other people.
You think so? Maybe so.
I think so. I don't know.
Yeah. I
Henry,
mean, my father would look at other people who
who were richer.
Were more wealthy than his brother. You think?
And there's an entire industry in this country and in the world designed to make you unhappy by convincing you that you don't have what you really should have. That
Yeah.
industry is called advertising.
Yes,
The
exactly.
goal of advertising is to convince you that what you have is not good enough and you really need something more. And what I always get a chuckle out of when I hear ads and they will use the phrase that, with this product, you can get what you deserve. And I always have to chuckle about what the heck that means. What does it mean you can get what you deserve? You deserve a brand new car, an electric vehicle. I don't even know whatever they're advertising. But Dennis Prager wrote a wonderful book called Happiness is a Serious Problem. And that's one of the things that he comments on. Henry and then Alan.
Yeah, one of the ways I interpret this is as an appreciation for what we do. Hopefully, most of us have chosen a career that we feel good about, and then, after a day's work, we feel like, oh, this was a great day. I was able to accomplish something. I appreciate that. So that's the way I read this. Get pleasure with all the gains you make under the sun. There's appreciation for, I was able to do something productive today, and it was great.
I would say Kohelet
And
agrees
so
with
on.
you. But I would also say there are a lot of people that work and their day-to-day work is not something they really get great pleasure out of. And you can get great pleasure out of other things. People have hobbies
Sure.
and so Alan, go ahead.
Two quick things. I still think to defend advertising a little bit is that some advertising brings people aware of something useful to them in a way they wouldn't. But having said that,
Mhm.
when I worked for Apple in an Apple store, and I would have customers come in, look at the new gadgets, and say, "I don't need this." Okay, and try to walk. They liked it, but they realized they didn't need it. I
Right.
would remind them that they might deserve it. I actually said that. I always got a
What
smile.
exactly do you mean by that?
Well, if you liked it, they obviously it applies to the category of when they look at one of the gadgets that Apple sells and they say, this does really nice things, but I don't have any need for it.
Right.
But they would enjoy it in the way that I conveyed the sense of using the word to ask them,
No.
but do you deserve it?
Yes. So again, I really don't understand what the word deserve means in that context. But
Yeah.
other than, you're trying to make a sale, and I understand that. I've spent a good deal of my life selling too. But I just, and it always amazes me,
Yeah.
astounds me when Apple would come up with the newest iPhone that there would be a line around the block
Right.
of people
Right.
waiting to get that iPhone.
That's right.
And it just amazes me that not only do they want to have the new and improved one, but they can't wait, 2 or 3 days to get it. And I would just, I find it fascinating. I'm not
Maybe the
gonna.
Webster definition of deserve is at play here. Okay. If
Yeah,
you
so yeah, deserve means you have done something and therefore you should have X rather than just Y. So I understand the meaning, and I would say if you've worked hard during a day, you deserve to get your salary. I feel bad for TSA agents that are now working without getting paid. They deserve to get paid. Uh, I anyway, I don't want to beat that one to death. So let's see. We're going to continue on this theme, Paul.
Also, whenever people are given riches and property by God, and they are also permitted to enjoy them and to take their portion and get pleasure for their gains, this is a gift of God. For such people will not brood much over the days of their life, because God keeps them busy enjoying themselves.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. So, um, before I get to this, um, it almost seems like if you're really enjoying your gifts from God, one of the good things is that you won't be looking and saying, "Wow, I just got this new, Apple, I don't know, iPhone 11." And even though the iPhone 16 is probably out by now, compared to back what we had, just 6 months ago, this is astounding. Um, there's also another just general teaching that I love, and I've mentioned it, I'm sure, many times. There's a book called by David Wolpe called "The Seven Questions You Are Asked in Heaven," and there's various traditions about when you meet God, what questions you will be asked. And one of the questions, my favorite in a list, is about all the legitimate pleasures in life that we denied ourselves. And I would say it speaks to the idea that Judaism is not an ascetic tradition. Ascetic tradition is one that preaches denial, self-denial. We are told, you're supposed to give 10%. And if you're righteous, you can give 20%. But the story I love to tell was of the head of a yeshiva in the old country. And one day he decides to gather his students and said, "We're going to go to the Alps. We're going to go hiking in the Alps." And his students are just astounded. This is a guy who pores over, Talmud and sacred text, every waking hour of his life. And now he's going to go out in the woods and with the students. And he said, "Rabbi," he said, I can't understand. Why are you doing this?" And he says, "It just occurred to me when I meet God and God says to me, 'No, what did you think of my Alps? What am I going to say?'" And so I love the idea. Unfortunately, the word is legitimate still in there. So that pretty much eliminates pork, shellfish, and your neighbor's wife. Um, but I love the idea that God has created all of these wonderful things for us, and God expects us to enjoy them and not feel guilty because you're enjoying them. You actually have to give to charity, and you've got to do things to make the world a better place, but you don't, as in some traditions, take a vow of poverty or, deny yourself, and you don't go around, self-flagellating, literally beating your flesh. So Judaism actually embraces that idea, which I personally enjoy. Alan.
I was just going to say what I said that I learned from you, but you have it in the box here at the bottom of the page.
Oh,
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I learned it from you, but that's what it's right there.
Yeah, but isn't and David Wolpe, and there's other books. Which did you set aside time for study? Were you optimistic? Were you honest in business? I'm trying to remember there are seven questions that people are asked according to various rabbis and traditions. Okay, so
I
we're up to
Supposed to
chapter
be
6.
honest in weights and measures.
Yes, thank you.
I just
Okay.
wonder if people are happy by giving. Somebody gives them something, and the giver is happy and the receiver is happy. I like that idea. I think God has made that a priority in my life. That's what happens to me.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a novel idea that it's better to give than receive.
Right.
And in fact, one of the things is, you're never supposed to be so poor that you become a burden on society. Whereas, there are religious cultures where people take a vow of poverty. And so not all religious traditions agree. Alan, you have something you were going to add?
Yeah, to add to something Paul said reminded me many years ago in Torah study, and I remember specifically the chapter, but not the verse. It was in chapter 11 in Exodus, and I learned that it's a mitzvah to actually ask for something, ask for charity. When you ask for charity, you're actually doing a good deed. And so it turned out the same day I got a phone call from a woman that I know asking me for money for a charity that she supports, and I thanked her for asking, and she cried.
Yes.
Yeah, because she probably didn't always get that
Yeah.
reception.
I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't got the context of
Yeah,
how.
I can't quite think of why that would appear, because Exodus 11 is just, oh, I bet I know the context. That it's just before I think Exodus 12 has the details of the Seder. Don't ask me why I know that.
Oh, Rabbi,
So
you're allowed to do that. Know that.
so if I had a guess, I would guess Exodus 11 speaks of the Egyptians loaning gold and silver
Right.
to the Israelites. And so a lot of us wonder, yeah, was that really voluntary? Were they, so I can see where you might derive that, but that's actually
Well, it was Rabbi Martyr to give credit, but that's where I
yeah.
got this in my mind, and I use it from time. I think about it from time to time, and I don't always say it. Yeah, right.
I'm going to be leading a book discussion of a book called Kabbalah, a Love Story, which I highly recommend. In fact, we ought to do it as a Zoom book discussion. I've never led a book discussion, so I'm actually a little nervous about this. Doing it in Leisure
You'd be
Village
great at it. You'd be
next
really
week.
good at
I
it.
don't know. We'll go find out. The problem is, it took me 6 readings of this book before I deeply got it. So,
Yes,
and there's so much there. I think I could speak an hour on every 3 pages.
sure.
But I had some written notes in the margin, which talks about one Kabbalistic idea, which is that God needs humanity. And of course, there's also Kabbalistic ideas, which I get a big kick out of, which are very sexual, that there's a male aspect to God and a female aspect to God. And the goal is joining the male aspects and the female aspects of God. And I don't remember if Larry said this or where I heard this, but I have a note written in the margin saying that mitzvot are divine aphrodisiacs. There's a phrase you won't hear a lot.
That's sweet.
That it actually stimulates, and this is very Kabbalistic. But I uncovered this note. I probably wrote it, 10, 15 years ago, that doing mitzvot are, we would all say make the world a better place. The Kabbalists would say stimulate the coupling of God's male and female aspects. So
Wow.
I will never forget that line again. It took me
great.
so long to get it again. Okay, let's say we can start on chapter 6. We've got a new chapter, and let's see if we can get a new reader. Henry, would you like to read? You often read.
Sure. There is an evil I have observed under the sun, and a grave one it is for mortals. That God sometimes grants a man riches, property, and wealth, so that he does not want for anything his appetite may crave, but God does not permit him to enjoy it. Instead, a stranger will enjoy it. That is futility and a grievous ill.
This commentary, I can't remember. Yeah, and the interesting just Hebrew thing. The word translated as wealth is kavod, which can also certainly mean honor. And it's probably not him just dying early because it says a stranger will enjoy it. So somehow his wealth goes to someone else. Henry, continue.
Sure. Even if a man should beget 100 children and live many years, no matter how many the days of his years may come to, if his gullet is not sated through his wealth, I say, the stillbirth, though it was not even accorded a burial, is more fortunate than he.
And again, we have this nefesh can mean soul or appetite, and the organ of desire was thought to be in the neck because I guess that's where your hunger sits. And they talk about this, the stillborn baby is more fortunate than someone who lives but is still not satisfied. And there was a commentary in one of the books I looked at. It was not even recorded a funeral. And back in ancient times, if a child lived less than 30 days, they did not have a funeral. In fact, the comment I saw was that they might be literally thrown out with the garbage, the stillbirth. That certainly, I would say, is not true today. Continuing to speak of the stillborn or possibly the unfortunate man.
Though it comes into futility and departs into darkness, and its very name is covered with darkness, though it has never seen or experienced the sun, it is better off than he.
Yeah, so this verse 5 seems to refer to a stillbirth who had never seen the sun, but the fact that your name is covered in darkness seems like it might refer to the man because the stillborn child would not have a name.
Yes, even if the other lived 1,000 years twice over, but never had his fill of enjoyment. For not both of them bound for the same place. For both of them bound for the same place. All of a person's earning is for filling the mouth, yet the gullet is not sated.
And amal is toil. So all the person's toil. Again, this sort of endless work. Yeah, toil. Okay, there it is. And the gullet, again, nefesh.
What advantage then have the wise over the foolish? What advantage have paupers who know how to get on in life? Is the feasting of the eyes more important than the pursuit of desire? That too is futility and pursuit of wind.
As I read these verses, it's hard for me to believe this made it into the Bible. And when you read some of the commentaries like Rashi, they're always struggling to say what Kohelet is really saying is good as Torah study. But they're clearly, I would say, reading that into the text. Okay, let's see. What is this? It's better translation. Better the sight of the eyes than the wandering of desire or the soul. So, seeing things is fine, but if you're seeing things and it just reminds you of how much more you should be getting, that is definitely not a good thing. Jim.
We are led to believe that this was written by Solomon. I mean,
But it is. You're choosing your words carefully, and I want to choose my words carefully. It is attributed to Solomon, so I would say that's probably one of the reasons why it's in the Bible. But I don't think any scholar believes that it's written by Solomon. So I'm not sure what you mean by we are led to believe.
Oh, okay. I know scholars don't believe that,
Right.
and it probably wasn't. But saying that he was king at this time and all these riches and
yes,
and people have concluded that it was Solomon.
Yes, and even the opening verse, just going back, says the words of Kohelet, son of David, king in Jerusalem. So that sounds a lot like Solomon.
So my question is, Solomon, this is a guy that had had communication with God. God said, "What do you want?" He said, "I want wisdom." And so he clearly knew that God existed Why then does he assume that when he dies, he goes to the ground and there's nothing? Why does he make that assumption?
Well, first, what is there, if it was Solomon, that would lead him to believe that anything else was true? The Hebrew Bible doesn't speak of any kind of an afterlife.
Right, but he spoke with God. He knew that there was something beyond the world. One would think that
He knew that, yeah, that there was a God. Okay.
he might presume that there was something beyond this.
Oh, but okay, but that's a big leap. So
Okay.
I'm quibbling with you, but it's a reasonable question. And then also remember Solomon. He has hundreds, if not 1,000 wives, many of whom are idolaters, and there are idols put up in the temple. And his son is very unwise and will destroy the unified kingdom and split it into two kingdoms. So some of the commentaries that we've seen guess at the idea that he could foresee what would happen after him, and that all of his work and everything else would be for naught. And I would say that's kind of a standard interpretive tradition, but it's a very good tradition. Henry and then Paul.
Yeah, the Koran Tanakh has something interesting to say about verse 9 here. It says, is it better for the eyes to see than for the spirit to enjoy? This too is empty breath and courting the wind.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's kind of a different way of describing that. I kind of like.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Paul?
I have a theological question. My daughter, who's about four, she just turned 50. She goes to a church every Sunday, and she brings home some of the literature that she's reading. Where do these kind of things that we're reading here fit into the Bible that she is getting from Jesus? Is that how it
Hold on a
works?
second. Stop.
Mhm.
If she's Christian, this
Yes,
book is in her Bible.
it is.
Whether it's from Jesus or not, that's another question.
Really?
How they address it and how they handle it, I really don't know. I don't know how. I can barely understand how Jews are supposed to understand this book. I
I see.
certainly am not going to speculate on how Christians, and my guess is a very different understanding from Catholic than more fundamentalist Christian. So
Yeah.
I just plain don't know. But the
Okay.
only thing I can answer with certainty is that this book is in the Christian Bible.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
You are welcome. Okay, we got another. Oh, okay. So the point here, focus on the pleasures that are in front of you, rather than your cravings for other things. And again, it's that quote from the Talmud that Alan mentioned: "Who is rich? The one who is satisfied with what he has." If you're always, looking at, why don't I have a newer car? Why don't I have a bigger house? Why don't I have a bigger boat? Um, I have to laugh when some of the advertising on CNN is this guy and his son want to go to the big football game, and their private jet had a problem.
Oh,
So a pro football player was going to the same game, and he gives them. But anyway, their day, indeed, their whole kind of week is destroyed because they can't get to that game.
yeah.
Because there was a problem with their private jet. But if you sign up with this other company, they guarantee that nightmare won't happen to you. Now, clearly, there are meetings and things where it's really important. But yeah, my grandmother, my father's mother, who was from Russia, an immigrant, uh, she would love to watch. We would love to watch television with her, and she would just react to every time there was a commercial. You remember Ring Around the Collar, that
Yes.
you
Mhm.
couldn't get
Yes.
out the dirt that was in the collar, and my grandmother would just start saying, "That poor woman, what is she going to do that she has this terrible problem?" This was someone who at risk of her life came from Russia to the U.S. So let's see if this is a good place to stop. Let's see. Whoops. I'm not sure what's going to happen after 10. Yeah, let's just read one more verse. Okay, Henry.
Whatever happens, it was designated long ago, and it was known that it would happen. As for humankind, they cannot contend with the one who is stronger than they are.
And better translation, according to my commentary, and no one can contend with him who is stronger than he is. So I think that's okay. So I think I'm going to cut it off here.
Rabbi,
And yes,
in the box, it's all lowercase word he. Is it intended to mean?
in which box?
Oh, wait a minute. You have it in the box on the lower left-hand side where you wrote better. I'm trying to process the
That's stronger than. No. Well, this actually,
That makes
I
sense.
try to be careful, but that is exactly the point. That the he here refers to the man. No man can contend with him, God, who is stronger than he, the man is.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. Thanks for
I
asking.
need to go back
Yeah.
over that. I get it. Thank you.
Yeah. Not always. Oh, here they also translated the O in one.
Right.
Okay. So I'm gonna. Any other thoughts? We will meet again next week, and then I'll be gone for a couple of weeks. I'm going to be the rabbi on board a Passover cruise. And even though I will suffer because we have an interior cabin, I have another rabbi friend who did one of these cruises with Royal Caribbean, and they tell you right up front you're going to get an interior cabin, and you can't upgrade to another cabin. I have to say, on other cruise lines, I have upgraded just because if they're empty cabins, sometimes they will give it to you.
Yeah.
But Sonia and I are both consigned and okay with suffering that fate as we spend 10 days touring around the Caribbean.
Wow.
So,
Nice.
so
And how much time do you spend in the cabin versus on the deck when you're
I mean,
awake? When you're awake, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the point. And that's why I so appreciate, I'm glad this is recording. I so appreciate Sonia, who that's exactly her attitude. Whereas I absolutely know many people, other rabbis who have this same experience, and they hate an interior cabin. And it's very nice to have a veranda and a balcony and sit and watch. But you can step outside your cabin and go over to whatever floor. And so anyway, it's exactly this point, Alan, that you quoted from the Pirkei Avot. Are you satisfied with what you have?
Exactly.
Or are you, coveting more and more and more?
Yes.
Well, do you know what states
we meet next week? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
We meet it on. Do we meet on Wednesday?
We're meeting Wednesday, and we're meeting Monday and Wednesday of next week.
Okay.
And I will, as I usually do, I'll keep you apprised on email.
Here's a little tidbit for you when you get to Jamaica. I mentioned that. I lived in Jamaica for 2.5 months when I was in medical school. And what I learned was that first permanent white settlers in Jamaica were Jews.
Oh, that's interesting.
Wow. No kidding.
Yes, I was actually went to temple one night. And after the Oneg Shabbat, the rabbi, his name was Rabbi Hooker from England, went ahead and introduced me. And then I was surrounded by people who wanted me to come over to their house. And Samuel Henricus pulled the hardest. And I met his 3 single daughters. And anyway, he was a Portuguese Jew that came over around 1505 or something like that. So he traced his ancestry to that. It was very interesting. So, and if you go to Montego Bay, which is on the opposite side of the island, you might give a little talk about the history of the Jews in Jamaica. It might be interesting.
Yeah, I think we're stopping in Jamaica. I'm pretty sure we are, but I'm not positive.
So the Portuguese that you're referring
but I appreciate you saying that.
I'm sorry. The Portuguese that you're referring to going to Jamaica, are they part of the same migration, if I can call it that, of the early Jews who came to New York City? Were the first Americans who got to
No. This is the second Inquisition. The first was Spain, and then Portugal was a few years later.
The
In
second
16
expulsion.
Yeah, so the second
it was
expulsion.
earlier even then, earlier.
We're
Yeah,
talking about the 1505, 1510, something like that.
Yeah, the first Jews in New York City were, I think, were
1654.
in the 1600s,
Yeah, 1654 is what.
and out of
Recife.
Brazil.
mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for that. I will remember that. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Nice seeing
Take
you.
care.
Have
Have
a good
a
week.
good
Good
have a good
night.
evening.
Good night.